Darius had spent most of his life on the battlefield, and after decades of fighting as a soldier, the king finally decided to reward him by giving him a domain of his own. But to Darius, it did not exactly feel like a reward. A full month had already passed since he was practically pushed into a carriage and sent away from the royal capital, and he still was not happy about being forced to leave. When the carriage finally stopped, one of the officials stepped forward and announced that they had arrived at Darius' new territory. He described it as a suitable reward for an orphan commoner who had somehow risen through the ranks. Then he handed Darius a map showing the borders of the land along with a list of supplies that had supposedly been prepared for him by the king himself. The official explained that this wide grassland was called Nesros, and from that day on, Darius would carry the name Darius Nesros. Darius only stared at him in silence until the official finished his explanation and left. With no one else around and no clear idea of what he was supposed to do, Darius decided to walk through his new domain and see it for himself. As he crossed the endless grassland, he thought back to the day the king had granted him this place as a reward for his service in the war. He still did not really understand what being a lord was supposed to mean. From the little he had been told, a lord was meant to live in his territory, protect the people under him, and collect taxes for the king. But after walking for hours, Darius did not find a single person. There were no houses, no roads, and not even a damn tree in sight. Eventually, he stopped near a stream to rest. As he drank from the clean water, a small smile appeared on his face. After spending so many years surviving on muddy battlefield water, something as simple as fresh water felt almost luxurious. By the time it arrived, Darius had made up his mind. He decided that he would give this land a real chance. But if nothing changed after 2 more days, then he would leave before the grassland ended up killing him. If that happened, he would look for a nearby village and find some way to make himself useful there. At the very least, he wanted to keep living in a way that honored his parents' final wish, to help others and protect people whenever he could. With that thought in mind, Darius lay down on the ground and went to sleep beneath the open sky. The following morning, he was suddenly woken up by someone kicking him. Darius opened his eyes in confusion and saw a young girl standing over him. Before he could even understand what was happening, she demanded to know who he was and what he was doing there. Darius calmly introduced himself and explained that he had simply been sleeping. The girl stared at him like he had lost his mind and asked if he was an idiot. Darius answered honestly, saying that yes, he probably was an idiot, but he had been told to live here. And for now, his main goal was just to stay alive because he had no intention of dying in the middle of nowhere. His answer only made the girl more irritated because she was convinced he had to be messing with her. But Darius told her he was completely serious. He'd explained that he wanted to fulfill his parents' dying wish by becoming useful to others and protecting anyone who needed help. The second Darius finished speaking, the horn on the girl's forehead began glowing with a soft blue light. She stared at him in confusion and asked why he was not lying. Darius simply answered that he had no reason to lie, and the horn shone blue once again. Seeing that reaction, she immediately asked him whether he was her enemy or her ally. But Darius hesitated since they had only just met and he did not fully understand the situation yet. The girl quickly grew impatient and demanded a clear answer. That was when Darius suddenly remembered something important. This land was supposed to be his domain now. If she lived here, then that meant she was one of the people he had been sent to protect. And if that was true, then there was no reason for him to stand against her. So Darius firmly declared that he was her ally. He promised that no matter what enemy appeared before her, he would protect her. The instant he said those words, her horn shone brighter than ever, forcing Darius to cover his eyes as he wondered what had just happened. But instead of explaining anything, the girl grabbed him and dragged him back to her village so he could speak with the chieftain. When they arrived, Darius immediately noticed the villagers watching him with suspicion. However, the thing that confused him most was how he had managed to miss this entire village yesterday, even though he had spent the whole day wandering through the area. Soon after, he was brought before the chieftain, and the first thing she did was ask the girl whether her horn had ever glowed red. The girl, whose name was Alna, shook her head and explained that it had stayed blue the whole time. She also told the chieftain that when she asked whether Darius was her ally, the blue light became stronger than ever after he answered yes. Hearing that, the chieftain became curious and asked Darius if he would become her ally as well, since he had already chosen to stand with Alna. Darius answered without hesitation that of course he would, and as far as he understood it, everyone in this village was now one of his subjects. And after all, the king had sent him to this land so he could protect the people living here. But the moment Darius mentioned the king, Alna instantly pulled out her bow and aimed it at him. But before she could act, the chieftain raised her hand and told her not to rush. She then introduced herself as Mole and asked Darius to explain everything from the beginning, including how the king had sent him to this place. Darius agreed and began telling them about his past. His earliest memories were of living with his parents. His mother always taught him to do work that would be useful to others, while his father told him to become a man strong enough to protect the weak. Those words became the last lessons they ever gave him, because both of his parents died during an epidemic when Darius was only 10 years old. After losing them, Darius gathered other orphaned children who had nowhere else to go. Together, they survived by cleaning the town, doing whatever small jobs they could find, and earning rewards by hunting weak monsters. Through all of it, Darius kept trying to live according to the wishes his parents had left behind. When he turned 15, war broke out, and Darius volunteered to fight because he wanted to protect the people who mattered to him. And as the years passed, it became clear that he had a natural talent for battle. He survived one battlefield after another, earned achievements through blood and effort, and continued fighting for 20 long years. Then when the war finally came to an end, the king rewarded him for everything he had done by granting him this domain. After listening to Darius' story, Mole could tell that he truly meant it when he said he wanted to protect the people under his care. Still, she had one more question for him. If they were not his subjects at all, would he still choose to stand beside them? Darius answered yes without even thinking. But the moment the word left his mouth, he realized the truth. These people had never been his subjects in the first place. If anything, they were considered enemies of the kingdom. Mole then properly introduced herself as the chieftain of the Anican tribe. For generations, her people had fought against the kingdom over control of these grasslands. However, 50 years ago, the Anican suffered a devastating defeat and were forced to run from their homeland. Darius wondered how they had managed to keep living here after losing the war, so Mole showed him the answer herself. The Anican stored mana inside the horns on their heads, allowing them to use several powerful types of magic. With that power, they were able to hide their entire village from outsiders. Their concealment did not simply cover the tents and people. It erased every sign that anyone was living there at all, which explained why Darius had failed to notice the village no matter how long he wandered through the plains. Darius became a little uneasy, wondering whether Mole should really be revealing such an important secret to someone who technically served the kingdom. But Mole told him there was no need to worry. If the reading from Alma's horn had shown anything other than blue, she never would have told him the truth. She explained that the Anican possessed a spell known as Soul Appraiser. When they faced danger or hostility, their horn glowed red. When the person in front of them meant no harm, it turned white. But blue was something far more special, because it meant that person would one day bring happiness or blessings to the tribe. According to Mole, if Darius had lied even once during their conversation, Alma's horn would have turned red immediately, but it never did, and that was why Mole decided to trust him. She told Darius that she hoped he would become a great lord one day, and to help him begin, she offered him shelter, food, and even livestock. In exchange, she asked for only one promise. He must never reveal the location or existence of their village to anyone, not even the king. Darius accepted without hesitation. He had no desire to bring trouble to people who were only trying to live peacefully. As long as they did not start another war with the kingdom, he saw no reason to stop them from remaining on the plains. Mole seemed satisfied with his answer and then casually announced that Alna would be assigned to assist him with his work and look after him. The second Alna heard that, she screamed in frustration, but Mole told her that since she brought him here, he was now her problem. Not long after, the villagers helped Darius set up a tent of his own. Alna explained that everyone in the village lived in tents because they needed to be ready to pack up and move quickly if they ever faced a danger that concealment magic could not solve. She also told Darius that the rest of his supplies would be brought over soon and that later she would teach him how to take care of the livestock. Before leaving, Alna handed him a small pouch of Matani dust. She explained that when scattered across the ground, it would attract nearby beasts by leaving a scent trail. If Darius hunted those beasts, he could bring their meat and hides back to the village and use them to get the supplies he needed. Darius then leaves the village and heads straight out to hunt, wanting to make use of the Matani dust Alna gave him. But after putting a good distance between himself and the village, he suddenly realizes that he forgot to ask one very important question. He has no idea how much of the dust he is supposed to scatter. And because Darius is clearly not the type to overthink things, he decides to pour out the entire bag and simply waits to see what happens. Before long, a herd of black geese comes rushing toward him. But instead of being frightened, Darius looks almost thrilled. After so many years on the battlefield, danger like this feels familiar to him, and the moment the beasts close in, his instincts take over. With his battle axe in hand, he swings with overwhelming power and cuts through the herd one after another. When the fighting finally ends, nearly half of the black geese have been taken down. For a moment, it seems like an incredible result, but then Darius notices the mistake he failed to consider. Defeating that many beasts is one thing. Carrying all of them back by himself is completely impossible. By the time the sun begins to set, Darius slowly returns to the village with only one black geese slung over his shoulders. Even though he won the fight, he feels disappointed. After bringing down so many of them, returning with just one makes him feel like he wasted most of the hunt. He also assumes Alna will probably make fun of him again. But when he arrives, Alna does not react the way he expects. Instead of teasing him, she's genuinely impressed and praises his manliness for defeating a black geese on his very first hunt. Darius then casually tells her that this was not the only one he killed. He actually took down nearly half a herd, but he could not carry the rest back alone. As soon as Alna hears that, she rushes off to gather villagers so they can help collect the remaining black geese. After the story reaches Mole, she comes over to congratulate Darius herself. She praises his strength and calls him remarkably manly, which only leaves him confused. When he asks what she means, Mole explains that a man's worth is shown through hard work and dependability. In her eyes, those are the qualities that make a man truly admirable, while everything else matters far less. Then Mole casually adds that if Darius ever married Alna, the village would probably expect a much larger wedding gift than usual. Darius immediately tries to deny that anything like that is happening, but Mole simply laughs and tells him not to worry because humans and Anakin are fully capable of having children together. The following day, Darius wakes up to find Elma preparing breakfast for him. After tasting it, he sincerely compliments her cooking. Alna then asks when he plans to hunt that day, which surprises him because he thought yesterday's haul should already be enough. But Alna explains that if Darius wants people to settle in his domain, he will need more than food. A proper place to live needs things like a well and a privy. And if he wants the village craftsmen to build them, he will need more goods to trade. Darius quickly suggests hunting more black keys, but Alna refuses that plan. This time she tells him to go after monsters instead. Their meat is too filled with miasma to be eaten, but their claws, horns, and the magic stones inside their hearts can all be sold for a good price. Darius asks if there are monsters nearby, and Alma says she can track them using the power of her horn. At first, Darius does not like the idea at all because he thinks monster hunting is too dangerous for her to be involved in. Still, after hesitating for a while, he eventually agrees to let her guide him. Not long after that, Darius is outside brushing wool from the sheep when several villagers arrive, bringing the rest of the supplies meant for him. They'd apologize because his yurts are still not finished yet, but Darius tells them there is no need to worry since he is not in any rush. Just then, Alna steps out dressed for travel, and for a brief second, Darius finds himself staring at her. The villagers nearby immediately look like they are about to burst from jealousy, while Darius quickly clears his throat and awkwardly says that they should leave if they are going hunting. While the two of them are traveling, Alma chants a spell and uses her magic to locate a monster with precision. She tells Darius that whenever his head is large. Darius says he will go and check it out first, but Alma refuses to stay behind. She reminds him that she can use concealment magic, and if the situation becomes dangerous, she can hide both of them so they can escape. So the two of them look together and discover that the creature is not some oversized turtle, but an earth dragon. Even after seeing that, Darius decides he wants to try attacking it. Alna immediately warns him not to do anything reckless and says it is too dangerous to charge at an earth dragon alone. But Darius does not listen and chooses to fight it head-on anyway. As he rushes forward, he tells Alma to stay hidden. He swings his axe against the dragon's scaly body, only to discover that its scales are far too hard to cut through. Realizing brute force will not be enough, he changes his approach and aims for its weak points instead. But the earth dragon quickly protects those areas and curls itself up, covering its vulnerable spots inside its shell. Alna warns him again that fighting an earth dragon like this is far too reckless, but Darius refuses to retreat while he still has options left. He climbs onto the dragon's back and keeps striking with his axe, trying to break through its defenses, but the repeated blows begin to chip the blade. Even so, he refuses to stop. Using sheer determination, he reinforces the axe with his will and keeps hammering the same spot over and over. As the battle drags on, the dragon's miasma starts affecting Alna, and Darius realizes he cannot keep this up much longer. He decides he will make one last attack before pulling back, and to his surprise, that final blow finally cracks through one of the dragon's scales. In response, the enraged beast launches fireballs at him. Darius uses the opening to strike at one of its weak legs and wound it. And just as he gets ready to press the attack, Darius realizes the dragon has spotted Alna. Knowing that Darius is the greater threat, the brilliant monster decides to go after her instead. But the moment Darius sees that he is filled with fury, he leaps high into the air and comes crashing down onto the dragon with all his might, tearing through its spine and killing it on the spot. The instant the fight ends, Alna's eyes fill with tears at what she just witnessed, and she runs straight into Darius's arms. But before he can even process the sudden tight hug, she blurts out that the two of them are getting married, leaving Darius completely freaked out. This was the end of episode 1. Subscribe to not miss the next episode.